Namaste and welcome to Urban Chatterati. This is Abhinav Prakash, and today I'm joined by Rajiv Mantri once again, author and investor, to discuss the big news of this week, which is the privatization of Air India, or I would say that Air India has returned to its original owner. So, Rajiv Mantri, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Abhinav, for having me. Great to be back.
So, Rajiv, I'm interviewing you wearing this lal kurta, right? So I'm going to play the role of the JNU comrade here. What has happened? Why are you privatizing everything, all the family silver of the family, and giving it to these greedy capitalist corporate, bosses?
Is this really family silver? Let's look at the history of how Air India came into the hands of the government. So 1953, Air India is one of the leading airlines in the world. Very well respected name in international aviation, and it is kind of in a cruel manner snatched away from Tata Group by the government of India, nationalized by Prime Minister Nehru, and just since 2009 till date, so this so-called family silver that some sections are claiming it to be has consumed some 1.1 trillion rupees. That's 1.1 lakh crore rupees in the last 12 years of taxpayer money. So continuous fund infusions have been required. The government just not able to run an airline as it should not have in the first place. It should never have taken it on. But it's been a cash guzzler and how, right? So I think it's a very good step now that it is out of the government's hands. It has gone into private hands, and that too gone into the hands of the corporate group that had created this jewel. I don't think many people realize how good Air India was in the 50s and 60s. So let me give you a statistic. In 1968, something like 3/4 of the passengers of Air India were foreigners. People chose to fly Air India. It was such a well-reputed and well-run airline. And when they had options, when people could have flown their own carriers, their own national carriers, they elected to fly Air India. That is how good the service was. That is how good the airline's standard was. And obviously, in the last 15, 20 years, we know what the reputation of Air India has been. So what the government got and what it turned that into, it was one of the biggest destructions of a brand, of a asset that was ever carried out actually in India's history. And now hopefully it's gone back into the hands of the original creators. So hopefully, Air India will be restored to its glory, and we can all take the Tata backed Air India again.
But Rajiv, what exactly is deal all about? Because we know the government has been trying to privatize Air India for a very, very long time. What were the obstacles and how were those obstacles overcome in this deal?
So I think generally, there's always resistance to privatization of public companies, public sector companies. It happens because such companies have entrenched interests, labor unions and others who are kind of benefiting directly or indirectly by the public ownership. So public ownership obviously means permanent jobs. Permanent jobs means, no one is accountable. And then the labor basis of these public sector enterprises basically resist any change. And what the government has done is it has managed to sell it. It has been a long path for sure. We have been talking of trying to sell Air India ever since Modi government took office in 2014, right? So for like 5-6 years now, easily it has been on the cards that will it happen, can it happen? But what I think they have done very well in the government is they have gone through it in a very methodical manner. They sort of exhausted all the possibilities, including can government hold a stake in the company while the private sector runs it? In the first effort, that was the structure that was adopted. That let's see if there's any buyer that comes forward, and no one came forward, right? Like no one wants to be running an airline where the government is a stakeholder, because that comes with all kinds of other kind of oversight from possibly from CAG and other kinds of challenges. So they exhausted pretty much every pathway, and then eventually in this particular bid which was floated, it was an open bidding process. Anyone could have gone and bid. and the value realized is 18,000 crores on an enterprise value basis. So on an EV basis, Tata Group is paying 18,000 crores or something for the airline. And there's a cash component, obviously, which they'll pay the government, and the rest is assumption of debt. So I think this is the only structure that could have worked, because if you go on a net worth basis, then this airline has a negative net worth. It has consumed so much cash, right? Like last 12 years, it has burned through 1.1 trillion rupees. So the net worth is negative. So who will sort of, if you, then you have to give it to someone, just give it away to someone. So what the government has done is it has basically separated out the assets of Air India, which are necessary to run the airline. And only those assets are being transferred to Tata Group for the consideration. The rest of the assets are held by the government. That includes basically the land holdings that Air India has, the art collection that Air India has. I mean, few people know that Air India has a very valuable art collection, runs into thousands of crores of value probably. So that art collection, the land holdings, and other kinds of assets which are not necessary to run the airline are being held by the government. And the government will probably divest that and monetize that as well in due course. So I think it is a very well put together like sort of structure, which basically transfers the operational business into the hands of the new owner.
But some people have objected that the government has retained most of the debt of the Air India, which will ultimately be paid by the taxpayers. So what we have done is simply given the private sector the good part of it, the profit-making part of it, which will make future profit, while you have the socialization of loss and privatization of the profit. What do you have to say about it?
Well, what were these brilliant minds doing for so many months? Why didn't they bid for the airline if they really think so? They could have bid more than in Tata Group. They could have bid, 19,000 crores, 20,000 crores, whatever, on an enterprise value basis, and they should have taken the airline if they are so optimistic about managing to succeed with it. I mean, see, the Tatas have not taken on something easy. This is going to be a challenging turnaround. It requires resources, investment, significant management capability, all of that. And in a way, they have taken the airline. It's creating a warm, fuzzy feeling for everybody right now. That great, Air India is back to its old home. But there is going to be a business challenge for them to solve over the coming years. I think it's also a big opportunity. But I don't buy this logic that someone got something on a platter, because I mean, if we can't question the process, the questioning should have happened when the process was going on. So nobody raised a question then. I mean, it was an open bidding process, which means anyone can bid. You can enter the bid and say that you want to buy Air India for 50,000 crores. Go ahead, put up the money, take the airline. But no one did that. And now that the process is over and it has been done transparently and very sort of in a thoughtful and correct manner, I don't think it's appropriate to sort of try to sully the picture by saying that someone got something and whatever.
But this is what they do. I mean, I remember when the airports in Kerala were being put up for the bid and in other places. So I was advising my, old comrades that please, I mean, the bids are open. Please file the bid. Otherwise, you will blame that Adani has gone it, Ambani has gone it. So you have to be in the game in order to basically criticize what is happening out there.
No, and actually, Abhinav, the same thing had happened I remember the privatization of VSNL. There was a controversy was raked up. I think it was it the second term of the UPA government, where they tried to level allegations against the privatization of VSNL, which was also, by the way, a bidding process, right? It was a transparent bidding. And it was basically Reliance Industries against Tata Group. And Tata Group won that bid. And VSNL is today, what is Tata Communications? Used to be VSNL, essentially. Tata Communications is a very large, global communications company, and that used to be VSNL. But Tata's won the bid against Reliance. Now somebody says, they got it for free. Well, they could have also bid. Why didn't they bid? I mean, there's no sort of curb on anyone, right, to enter.
Yes. But
yeah, I mean, vested interests always level such allegations. I don't think they are, have any credibility whatsoever.
Yeah. I mean, these people are talking to taxi drivers in Manhattan to tell us about, the farmers' protest and the farm laws in India. So this is how they were making economic policies, it seems. But Rajiv, coming to the Tata Group itself, what this deal means for Tata Group and what it means for the aviation sector in India. Because see, the aviation sector is also not doing very good because of the lockdown, because of the pandemic, and there's lots of stress out there. It's not that it was doing very great before it, but now the stress is quite apparent. So what this deal basically means for the both the company and the sector?
So let's look at the industry. So the aviation industry now, internationally, it's a very difficult business. We all know. There's an old joke like, right, that how do you become a millionaire? You become a billionaire and you start an airline. You become a millionaire. If you want to become a millionaire, a billionaire starts the airline and they turn into a millionaire, because the nature of this industry is very capital intensive. Subject to oil prices. Interest rate risk, because it's large investments are required to run an airline and so on. So, thus the reputation is such that not very sort of, let's say, conducive for investment. Having said that, India is in a different kind of place right now. If we just look around, anyone who's traveled of late, you will notice how egalitarian air travel is becoming. You see, earlier it used to be the preserve of, let's say, upper middle class or rich people, and nowadays you're seeing all kinds of people take to flying. It's. I mean, I've experienced this myself several times. That sometimes you are next to a first-time traveler, and they are not sure how to put the seat belt, and it's very interesting and heartwarming to see that every section of society is now able to access proper travel in that fashion. So
once while traveling to Mangaluru, because you are in Bangalore at the moment, I had to take a flight to Mangaluru via Bangalore. So when I got to the flight from Bangalore to Mangaluru, actually a passenger in the front seat said to the person sitting in the window seat, "Ki bhai sahab, yahan pe ladies ko baithne dijiye." I mean, he said in some broken English, so I could understand what he was saying, but it's basically the same thing you hear in the railways.
Yeah. So I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, many people are flying for the first time. Now, India is a growing market. India is going to be the largest buyer of airplanes probably for the next several years. It's going to be among the very large purchasers of aircraft for civil aviation industry. We are going through the classic S curve right now. What management consultants call the S curve. That consumption is increasing. The discretionary spend that Indians in aggregate will have is going to increase very dramatically. And thus, that along with the infrastructure push that we are seeing, airports are being opened up across the country, and India is getting connected like never before. Nowadays you can take flights from the top 4-5 cities to practically every corner of the country. You can reach in like a matter of 5-6 hours at most. So this is a unique time, I think, for civil aviation. And that growth which is going to happen in the country, at the moment, there is Indigo, which is having probably a 45%, 50% market share. It is the largest player by a wide margin. And then there is, SpiceJet, Air India, and then Air Vistara, and pretty much this is the market, right? And AirAsia India also. So Tata is actually now having 3 airlines in the market. They have one low-cost carrier, which is AirAsia India. They have Air Vistara, and they also have Air India now. So probably there will be some kind of consolidation between the premium carriers, which is Vistara and Air India, and Air India Express, which is the low cost arm of Air India, could be sort of combined somehow with AirAsia India. And after this acquisition, probably Tata Group will become probably, I think, easily number 2, still behind Indigo, but number 2. And they will be the only carrier which has the offering of premium seats, both domestically and internationally. The only Indian airline which is offering premium sort of cabins, which is business class travel, premium economy travel, and with the network that Air India offers, I think Vistara will be able to, if they combine them somehow, that network will cover like pretty much all the capitals of the world. And in that sense, I think there are a lot of synergies that Tata can get out of this. And we should also remember, right, they're already in the hotels business. So there is scope for bundling for them here. They can combine like some kind of a bundling on the travel side with airlines and the lodging company that they have. So there is a lot of things that Tatas can do with this, and of course, they bring the capital to the table, they bring the management sort of capability to the table to really build this up in a truly world class fashion. And we should also think about the aspect that it is absurd for India, a country the size of India, to be relying on foreign carriers for its pretty much entire long haul air travel. So for example, like the share of international carriers taking Indian passengers to like European countries, North America, that versus the share of Indian carriers. There's hardly any share that Indian airlines are having. And there was that example that we saw when Air India itself a few years ago had launched the Bangalore San Francisco flight, direct flight. You board in Bangalore and you land in San Francisco 15 hours later. And that just one flight actually really affected the business of Etihad. So Etihad, which is this UAE Abu Dhabi based carrier, and they have really gained, right? So Etihad, Emirates, Qatar Airways have really gained a lot from the Indian market because India never invested heavily in its own airline. And now that Tatas will build up Air India, I'm sure Air India will give a run for the money to all the Middle Eastern carriers. And we've seen that happen, like I said, with the Bangalore San Francisco flight that was launched by Air India. It really took away business from Etihad.
Interesting. Let's see. I mean, the things will play out in the future because there's lots of restructuring which has to go on. I think coming few years will be quite interesting to watch as to what
they have the task cut out for sure. I mean, the airline requires reinvestment.
Yes.
There will be certain rebranding, and they have to win the confidence to some extent of customers.
That's the most difficult part. And as many people are pointing out, let's talk about interiors, let's talk about menu, let's talk about other things as well.
Yes.
Those are also very much needed. But, coming to the overall government policy, the privatization of Air India was the big ticket privatization. It was always seen as the barometer of the economic policy and the willpower of the government. But now the government has done it. So what does it signify for the future economic policy of the government and the overall sentiments and the perception of the economic policy, because those are also extremely important?
No, I think it is very clear now that government, which had stated this policy of privatization last year, there was a list of sectors given out, that the strategic and non-strategic sectors and non-strategic sector companies in the which are having public sector enterprises would be divested completely. That was committed, and this is the first one that has happened, right? So now we are looking at BPCL and some other companies that are in the pipeline for privatization like this. So I think the government has made an important statement that we want to focus on the core tasks of what a government should do, which is justice delivery, national security, policing, and put our money over there, put the taxpayers' money into those activities. Stay away from activities where private sector can do the job, right? So, and obviously aviation is one of them, and all those non-strategic sectors which are identified now, and the government is committed that we are going to exit. I think in the coming years we will see that. I have a lot of confidence now that the government will walk the talk. And this is really good news for the Indian private sector, because when was the last time that a government showed such confidence in our private business, in our entrepreneurs? It's not happened in a long time.
But let's say many people would say that this is not the right time to go with privatization because the economy is not in a very great shape because of the pandemic and all. You could have got better value for these assets if economy was at the boom time. So is this time period when you're coming out of the pandemic, when economy is still struggling and trying to recover, is it a good time to go and do disinvestment?
So this is a specious argument, right, Abhinav? I think it sounds like, yes, it sounds very reasonable. But then, if things are going well, then people say, why do you want to sell it? Right? Things are going well. It's a profitable company, right? They will say they make these arguments that why is the government selling a profitable company? Things are going so well. Economy is doing well. Why do you need it? So when the going is good, this is the argument made. When the going is not so good, then they'll say, do it later. So it is just, I think, kind of just something to deflect. Those who don't want to, those who are ideologically against, private participation, will always make these arguments. But I think, the right time to divest is whenever you can find a buyer. I mean, frankly,
whenever you
can find a buyer, right? Like,
true.
Imagine if in 2003, the Vajpayee government had succeeded in divesting Air India, how much money government would have saved?
Yeah.
1.1 trillion is just from 2009. That's the figure given by the government on the day the privatization was announced. And you add up another 6 years before that. So in total, like, how much money has been sunk into this in the last 17, 18 years? It's an enormous amount of money. Like the number of universities you can create, the amount of R&D you can do, the sort of spend you can do on, defense, policing. I mean, this is a meaningful sum. Like, it would probably be, and remember, this is just an absolute number, probably not inflation adjusted.
I was thinking the same.
Yeah. So it's a lot of money that has been sunk in. So once I think you have taken a policy decision and you've sort of philosophically committed yourself that, government should not be in the business of doing business. And, all those non-strategic sector companies, I think we need to just keep moving forward. In fact, right now the government's kind of balance sheet is stretched a little bit, or at least has been in the last 18 months. Right now, economy is again picked up in the last few months. GST collections are good. All that is good. Fiscal is not so stressed probably now. But government needs to reserve firepower, right? Like in an environment like this where there could be a third wave, maybe we won't have a third wave, maybe we will have a third wave. But then the government should be focusing on protecting poor people, like giving welfare to those who need it, provisioning for healthcare. Should it focus on those things, or should it pour more money into Air India in an environment like today? So I think the answer is obvious. I mean, we have to refocus the government on the important things that a government is supposed to do. And those things do not include running an LA.
Fair point, Rajiv. And my last question to you would be, what are the next three big things you are looking in the economic policy decisions by the government? Not what you want, but what you expect in the next 1 year.
I think on direct taxes, we should see something. So the finance minister also said, when the taxes were raised, on the personal income tax was raised in 2019, finance minister had mentioned that we will relook at this in the 75th year of independence. And now we are there, right? So 3 years have passed. I think there is a case to sort of reassess. And frankly, direct tax reforms have been long overdue. As I mean, you also very well know. There was a committee which gave a report on changing direct taxes. I mean, we've reformed indirect taxes comprehensively, but direct taxes are due now. So I think that should happen soon. That's an important one. And other two, I would say actually this is, even if we get this done, that's a really good one.
we at the Yuva Morcha also passed a resolution asking for the direct taxation reform. Apart from judicial reforms.
That was really good to see actually. Yes, judicial reforms obviously. But I think, that's an ongoing process in my view. Judicial reforms, defense, we are seeing continuous changes. So the episodic one, where, you do one thing and that's a big.
Yes, Razi, fair point. And I think we are having some connection issues now, and time is also running out. So I would like to end it here. But Thanks a lot, Rajiv, for your time, for coming to the show and talking to us, despite the fact that you are traveling. Right now you are in Bengaluru. But thank you once again.
No, thank you, Abhinav, for having me. It's been a historic sort of day, and happy to sort of share some thoughts on that.
Thank you. And thank you, audience, for listening to us. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hoping to see you soon. Thank you once again.
Thank you.